Hello everyone, welcome to my class. Myself Janisha from Saint Joseph Composite PU College, Vijaypur. I'm dealing with economics subject. In the last class, we have discussed about the frequency distribution. In that, class midpoint, class limit, class interval. So these all things we discussed in the last episode. Today, we are going to deal with new concept, that is frequency curve. Then what is frequency curve? So let me discuss in detail. Dear students, as you know that curve means what? Curve means graphical presentation or the graphical representation. So frequency curve means what? So frequency curve is a graphical representation of a frequency distribution. So frequency curve means what? It is the graphical representation or the graphical presentation of what? That is frequency distribution. Then how to obtain the frequency curve? So to obtain the frequency curve, we plot the class marks on the x-axis and frequency on the y-axis. As you know that in a graph there are two axes, x-axis and y-axis. So when we plot the class mark, so you know that what is class marks, right? So when we plot the class marks on the x-axis and frequency on the y-axis, then we obtain frequency curve. Okay students, so then what is frequency curve? So frequency curve is a curve which represent a frequency distribution, that is by the help of graph. And also how to obtain this frequency curve? That is by plot the class marks on x-axis and frequency on y-axis. Okay students, now let me see this with the help of diagram. See in this right side diagram, so this diagram says that what? That is frequency curve. You see that here. So curvy shapes will be there, right? So this is what? Frequency curve. So here in this x-axis and y-axis, you can observe that, right? So in the x-axis and y-axis, so here we plot the frequency. Here we plot the class mark as well as the frequency. So this is what we obtain, what? Frequency curve. So this shape is there, no? This is called a frequency curve. Dear students, now let me discuss about how to prepare a frequency distribution. So as you know that already frequency distribution, then how to prepare the frequency distribution. While preparing a frequency distribution, the following 5 questions need to be addressed. So they are, first one, should we have equal or unequal sized class intervals? As you know that class intervals, right? Second one, how many classes should we have? So means number of classes should we have? And third question, what should be the size of each class? That means 5, 10, 15 like that. So how much the size of each class? And fourth question, how should we determine the class limits? Means you know that upper class and lower class limit, means how to determine. And fifth question, how should we get the frequency for each class? Means how can we get frequency for each class? So this is what the 5 questions will be addressed while preparing the frequency distribution. Now let me discuss regarding this in detail. Should we have equal or unequal sized class intervals? See students, there are two situations in which unequal sized intervals are used. See, that means what? For the class intervals, either we are using equal or unequal sized class intervals. So this is what the question while preparing the frequency distribution. See, in some cases, in some situations, there are mainly two situations are there because to what use the unequal sized intervals. There are two situations in which we are used unequal sized intervals. So they are first situation when we have data on income and other similar variables where the range is very high. That means when there is a range is very high or when it is very difficult to measure the data, at that time we are using what? Unequal sized intervals. For example, income per day may range from nearly 0 to many hundred crores of rupees. Right? So income, because income is what? Varied concept, a variable. So it may change per day. Yes, it may change from per day range from nearly 0 to many hundred crores. Means it will change a lot. So that it will create what? That is unequal sized classes. So in this situation means when there is range is very high, so at that situation we used unequal sized intervals. This is what? First situation. In such a situation, equal class intervals are not suitable. See, when there is data will be bulk, so at that time equal class intervals are not suitable because if the class intervals are of moderate size and equal, there would be a large number of classes. And second one, if class intervals are large, then we should tend to suppress information on either very small levels or very high levels of income. So why we are not used equal class intervals? Because the reason here, if the class intervals are moderate size, see if the class intervals or the class limit, so it should be moderate size or equal, then there would be a large number of classes. Means it should be create what? Large number of classes. And if the class intervals are large, say if the class intervals if it is large bulk, then we would tend to suppress information. That means what? If the class intervals are large means we need to what? Suppress, or we need to smaller the information. We need to suppress the information that is on either very small level or very high levels of income. That means we need to change our information so that equal class intervals are not suitable. That is when the range is large. And in second situation, if a large number of values are concentrated in a small part of the range, equal class intervals would lead to lack of information on many values. That means if a large number of values that are concentrated in a small part of the range, means the range is small but the values are large. That means if we are concentrated on large part of the values, and equal class intervals would lead to, so that here if we are used equal class intervals, then we need to reduce what? More number of information, or it will create lack of information on many values. In all other cases, equal size class intervals are used in frequency distributions. So except these two situations, we all use equal sized class intervals in many frequency distributions. So this is what the two situations of frequency distribution. Okay students, in the next class we have to discuss further, and in this episode some exercise questions will be there. Please solve those exercise questions. Thank you.